The first thing to be affected in real estate was hotels.
Yeah.
And serviced accommodation.
Yeah.
So all you serviced accommodation guys, have a think.
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all good. So I'm joined today by Edward, who is our mortgage broker. So we've got a bit of a different video today. We are discussing the coronavirus and whether we think it will cause a recession or not.
Yeah. I've got to start this video with a big fat caveat. I'm a fan of sort of economics and finance, and I'm very boring, but this is just my personal opinion. This is not formal advice. Don't take it as read. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but I want to be able to have a bit of a chat casually as if we were having a drink and go, this is what I think is the effect. That's what we're going to do today.
Yeah, it's nothing too, serious.
It's not serious, it's not serious yet.
Yeah.
We'll lock the door. We're barring ourselves in.
Yeah. So, how long have you worked in finance?
I've worked in finance for 13 years.
Yeah.
I've worked in a number of capacities. Relevant to what we're talking about today, I've been an analyst for an investment bank and for a hedge fund.
Yeah.
So thinking about markets and how they move and what goes wrong, I did that for a bit.
Yeah.
So that, I guess that's the sort of knowledge I'm bringing today, and I've done a couple of courses that are along those lines as well.
So you started working before the 2008 recession?
I did. I started working in 2006, and I worked in a call centre for about 6 months, and then I got a good promotion, and I was the guy who set the interest rate on buy-to-lets for a certain lender.
Yeah.
And it was one of the ones that didn't really help the crash very much, because we were one of the ones who were a little bit more risky, and we were selling it to America.
Yeah.
And then it was going into what they called securitizations. It was going into the investments that caused the crash. So I was pretty, I've had a bit of a personal experience with what it feels like before a recession, like when everybody's in denial about it, what it feels like during, and then afterwards when you're out of work and you're looking for a job.
Yeah, so you're clued up.
Yeah, I mean, there's older people than me who's been through 3 or 4 recessions, but I started right at the peak of a huge boom, just before one of the biggest recessions we've ever had.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a big part of me and my personality, definitely.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, what is a recession? How does it start?
Fine. Yeah. Well, a recession it's when the economy is decreasing. Instead of growing, it's decreasing in size. There's a technical definition of a recession, which is 2 quarters of negative growth. Basically, for 6 months in a row, the economy shrinks.
Yeah. That's
technically a recession. They tend to happen about once every 6 or 7 years. Mm-hmm. If you look at the cycle, it's about that. Now, the last one was 2008, and 12 years ago. So it wouldn't be a big surprise if we had one now, just looking at it. But we seem to still be in a bit of a growth period. But then this Corona thing's come up, and it's like, oh, okay, what's going to happen now?
So in terms of Corona, why is this having such a big effect on the economy?
Well, right now, I'm not a doctor. I spoke to a doctor yesterday who's a pathologist. He's quite high up, and a lot of doctors, he was saying, I think this is a bit overblown, because actually if you look at the people who are seriously affected, it's people who are quite vulnerable, and there's a stat where I think it's like 80% of deaths were people who weren't were pretty ill or pretty old anyway.
Yeah.
Thing is, we saw this in China, if everyone goes onto lockdown for a couple of months and people stop going on holiday and stop leaving the house very much, that has a big knock-on effect on the economy. The economy is very fragile. It's very sensitive. So it might mean that if you were in a business and a quarter of your staff all got the flu at the same time, it would be really rough for about 3 months. Yeah. And I'd guess that's what's going to happen. Yeah. It seems like the cat's out the bag. The numbers are jumping up in the UK already, and there's cases in London. There's a couple of cases in London where they don't know where it's come from. Yeah. So it seems like, all right, this is going to happen. Maybe let's just pick a number out of the air. 10% of the country get the flu. Yeah. For a few weeks. it's gonna affect. It's just gonna affect people's buying patterns because they're not going to be going out and spending money, and that's what makes the economy go around. But it's also, if you look at other countries that are less developed, it's going to be much worse there. So places like India, and well, places like Vietnam, I suppose, where a lot of goods get shipped in from there. You might see that, for example, if there's less, I don't know, what goes in property, screws being produced in the factory in India, because there's less staff, because a third of them are off sick, the prices of those are going to jump up.
Right, okay.
So we might see things become a bit less scarce.
Yeah.
I'm hoping, and I think this will be something that affects us for a few months. If it's just Corona on its own, hopefully it's not going to snowball into something bigger.
Yeah.
It's going to be a bit shaky for a couple of months, and then by summer or September or something, we'll be all right.
Yeah. And so what sort of trends have we kind of already seen?
Well, we saw it in China. The first thing to be affected in real estate was hotels.
Yeah.
And serviced accommodation.
Yeah.
So all you serviced accommodation guys, have a think, because if everyone's sick and you've got a flat in the centre of Liverpool that you're renting on Airbnb, you might want to get a tenant in there for the next 6 months to cover yourself through this.
Yeah, me and Mum were saying this because obviously we've got rid of ours.
Yeah.
Well, we've sold ours.
Yeah.
And like, obviously from what I'm hearing from other people, a lot of their bookings are getting cancelled and things like that. Yeah. Because if you've got people coming from overseas, when me and Mum did it, we had so many Chinese guests. But if they can't fly over, then that's taken away like so many customers already. If
I was somebody sat on an Airbnb property or a serviced accommodation property now, I'd go, right, let's rent it, because it's going to be, if things do shut down in the next month, people stop travelling, it's going to be hard to even get a normal tenant in, probably, for say the next 6 months. So you might be prepared, you might have a vacant property. I would cut my losses, reduce rent pretty drastically today.
Yeah.
Get somebody in there for the next 4 months and just go, all right, better the devil you know, I'm losing £200 a month, or whatever it is, but I know where to stand. You know?
Yeah. And I guess there's a risk as well that if it gets worse in England, the corporates will stop travelling anyway.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I spoke to somebody at a senior high street bank today, somebody who was quite senior, and I was meant to have a face-to-face meeting with this person, and they cancelled and rearranged it over the phone. And at the end of the call, I said, are you a bit busy? And they've started, off the record, they've started cancelling most of their face-to-face meetings. Yeah. And that's across the bank, because they know it could seriously impact their ability to do business.
Yeah.
And there was a thing last Friday, one of the traders in London Stock Exchange had a cough or a cold, so they all went home.
Oh God, that's extreme.
Yeah, and that's the stock exchange.
Yeah.
So it's like the disease might not be lethal, but what I'm keeping an eye on is the economic impact.
Yeah, definitely. And so what other trends are we sort of seeing? I know that with the FTSE, wasn't there like a massive drop, and it was like the third biggest drop in the last however many years?
Yeah. And it bounced a bit. If I remember, I'm not that close on stocks, equities, but I think it did bounce a bit, and it does bounce. But yeah, it did have a bloody big drop.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I think they when the news first broke out of Wuhan, I think they underreacted then.
Yeah.
Because I remember I was having a chat to a client who's involved with stocks quite closely, and we were both saying, I'm surprised they haven't adjusted a bit more. So I think there was a little bit of a denial mentality then of it'll be contained, it's not that bad.
Yeah.
But now I think they're out of denial, so yeah, they did drop, and I think they're right. I think that it's, as it stands, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
It's just like people might not be leaving the house very much for the next couple of months.
Yeah.
But like, what's going to be the problem is if it make something else happen in the economy.
Yeah.
The thing you can't predict, it's like, I've never had a car crash, but I don't. My driving instructor used to say, you have a crash when it's 2 or 3 things go wrong at once. It's not one. And recessions are a bit like that.
Yeah.
It's like you might have a bump, but it's like if you have a bump and there's somebody who's not lucky manages to go around the roundabout and somebody starts crossing the road.
Yeah.
That's when it happens and it all snowballs.
Yeah.
So it's like, I would plan, you got to assume the worst. I go like, all right, if we do hit a recession now because Corona's happened and then that causes some unknown thing to come out of the woodwork, that's the risk really.
Yeah. And do you think we were showing signs before that we were going to enter a recession? Because I feel like people have been rumouring this literally for about 2 years.
Yeah.
So do you think the signs were already there and then this is kind of like, oh?
Well, it's been a while.
Yeah.
And when it's been a while, because you're, how old are you?
22.
22, you're happy to say that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Young.
Right, so you've never worked through a recession, right?
No, I was literally in primary school, when the last recession was happening.
So I just caught the last one because I started working at 18.
Yeah.
So I'm probably one of the younger people who's actually worked through a recession.
Yeah.
And one of the things that happens is people just age out of it. The experience just goes. So it's like, I'm 31. So a lot of kind of managers and team leaders might be 31 now. And they just don't know what it's like.
Yeah.
So they don't think to expect it. I remember in 2006, it was like that. People just hadn't been through one. So they would make assumptions. They'd have like a risk model and they'd be like, have like a best case scenario, middle case, and worst case scenario. And the worst case scenario would be, oh, maybe we only grow by 1% instead of 5%.
Right.
And as opposed to like what it's like, which is maybe we shrink by 20 or 30%. You know?
Yeah.
Well, this is the interesting thing, is we were all thinking for the past couple of years, this feels like it's the top. We don't know.
Yeah.
Now, what's interesting about that is when it's the top, that's not what people say.
Yeah.
When it's the top, people say, everything's great, we're going to be rich forever, and everything's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
So I've been thinking for the past couple of years, I think this is the middle, and we might, and once Brexit and election are out of the way, we might get a sudden jump.
Yeah.
Which, because I'm clever, that's what happened. I take full credit for all of it. But I'd had a bit of a theory that 2008 was so bad that it knocked us completely out of kilter for about a decade.
Yeah.
And then I felt like we'd just come out of it and we're about to hit growth years again. And then Brexit had sort of dampened it. And I just thought, okay, this is probably not going to be a disaster and we're probably going to hit a boom.
Yeah.
Which I think, and actually we saw it in January, January and Feb. We did see that bounce, and it was attributed to Boris Johnson, which I don't think is correct, but he's very good at branding things. And I can't knock him for that, to be fair. But so we were kind of, so since 2008 we've kind of been mediocre, and then we looked. There felt like there was a bit of pressure to come up, like we're ready to grow, but then it's Brexit kind of kept us a bit dampened, and then all right, Brexit's out of the way, Boris, it just went up, and then coronavirus has come in.
Yeah.
So what I hope is that it's going to be all right. We're going to be still dampened again for 5 months, but then it'll continue on the trend that we're at. But as always, you've got to plan for the worst.
Yeah.
Really.
And so, what can we kind of expect if there is a recession in terms of being a property investor?
You can expect funding to tighten. It's going to be harder to get the sorts of funding we can get at the moment.
Yeah.
This is, as a broker, I can see that mortgages I can do now are a lot more liberal than they were 2 years ago, a lot more, and some of those things will tighten up quickly. Development finance, in the last one, in the last recession, was the first thing to go.
Yeah.
Completely just didn't exist for 4 years, something like that, 4 or 5 years. So that'll go pretty quick, other than for experienced developers who already know the bank personally.
Right, okay.
So that'll just go, really.
Yeah.
You'll see pressure on deposit size. If properties are dropping, it's going to be a lot harder to get a mortgage with a 5% deposit.
Okay.
You might see initially lenders will say we do 5% deposits, but they'll have a credit score that means only 1 in 100 people actually do it.
Okay.
Get it, because that's how they'll de-risk quietly.
Yeah. What about property house prices?
It's hard because there's not enough houses.
Okay.
And that kind of supports it.
Right, okay.
But that's what we said last time, and they did drop quickly. I can't remember the stats, but it was a lot. I think certain areas will be worse. So let's think, where are property prices too high? What do you think?
London.
Yeah. Anywhere else, if it comes to mind?
Birmingham, maybe getting there.
I think, to be fair, a lot of this stuff is actually pretty common sense. It's like the things that will drop. Things that drop first are the top of the market.
Yeah.
Big, expensive, luxury accommodation. So that's all of London is priced that way at the moment. Anything in zone 1 or 2 is through the roof. Anything. So if in Birmingham, maybe there are some flats that have been selling for really high values to foreign investors and rich kids. A lot of them coming studying from abroad. A lot from China. Not being rude, but I have a couple of clients who are like that. And there's some really, really gorgeous apartments, but are being priced really highly. Penthouse places. They'll drop off immediately.
Yeah.
The things that survive. And there's always the bottom of the market is always the bottom of the market. Everyone always needs cheap places to live and rent.
Yeah.
So you want your lower end sort of 80 grand properties. They're not going to get hit too badly.
Yeah. Say if you're buying like now, due to complete in about 2 months. If you wanted to do a buy, refurbish, refinance, and then we end up in a recession, would it be better to wait to refinance a little bit longer?
It depends on how specialist it is. If I've got a case at the moment with somebody who's doing a new build and it's going to be refinanced as a holiday let.
Okay.
Now, if I was a lender, a development finance lender, I'd think, well, there's not going to be a holiday market at the moment. Careful, I'd think about waiting on that one. Now, if you're refinancing onto something fairly standard, I mean, all right. So let's think about it. What survives during a recession? It's the lower end of the market.
Like the buy-to-lets.
So it's like buy-to-lets, HMOs. I mean, hopefully HMOs will still have a demand. If people get a mentality like they're worried about infection, then actually maybe that'll affect HMOs.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Who knows? I don't know. It's hard to say, isn't it?
It's really hard. Yeah.
Yeah. But I definitely think service accommodation, that's risky.
I've said this for a while, and we might be worth another video actually on this, but serviced accommodation, Airbnb came into the country in 2012, so we've never had a recession with Airbnb. And the thing is that I sometimes get inquiries from people who've quit their jobs because they've got 3 or 4 serviced accommodation properties, which is really cool, and they're making like good money off them, which is great. But we don't know what's going to happen. Nobody knows what's going to happen with those in a recession. So it's like, what's the fire drill there? And often, 80% of the money, the actual profit, will come from 20% of your actual properties. So if you've got 5, one of them probably makes you most of your profit once you actually take all the numbers out. And the other 2 are kind of chugging along. Other 4, sorry, basic maths. Failed. It's going to be really interesting. I mean, I wouldn't be, because I'm an entrepreneur, I want to see opportunity.
Yeah. So
I'm worried about this because the sorts of clients I'm dealing with, I might have to change that really drastically in a month.
Yeah.
If I'm dealing with investors and builders who are building new properties and eco-friendly developers, if we hit trouble, that's going to go immediately. It's just not going to exist. So I'm going to have to switch up quick. But it's like the quickest person to adapt. If you're the first to adapt, then you might actually make a killing. So I think for anybody watching this, I think keep your eyes open. Be ready to move very, very quickly. If you're somebody who's got some cash in the bank, you might pick yourself up a distressed sale. Someone's had to sell quickly. for cheap.
Yeah.
And you might not see a big return on it, in the next year, but you suddenly might see that price jump up 15% a year later.
After all, so I guess this is kind of, well, if we went into a recession, it would be like a time to buy and hold rather than flip or something.
Exactly. Yeah, you're not going to be able to. I mean, flipping is going to be harder because if you're in a market that's going down, it's going to be really hard.
And I guess that's why things like development finance that ends up kind of like disappearing, because if someone's doing like a pub conversion, say, and they want to sell off the apartments, and then it's like, well, what are you going to sell them for after?
Exactly.
Okay.
Well, a lot of what happened in 2008 is a lot of developments, banks just pulled their funding and said, sorry, you're halfway through the bill, but sorry, money's not there. And but I've got to say, I started working in 2006. I was in the room with senior people as we were setting criteria policy for mortgage lenders, and I was in the room as we were talking about. Have you ever heard of self-cert mortgages?
No.
Which is good. It's good that you haven't heard of it. Back then, you could get a thing called a self-cert, which was write your name on a piece of paper, tell us what you earn, sign it. That's what you earn.
Right.
You've self-certified.
Oh, I see.
And I was in the room with a senior person who had worked at high street banks and specialist lenders, and we were doing a bit of analysis on our customer base. And I said, I've done some analysis. The average earnings of our clients on self-cert is £80,000 a year. And he said, that's good. We're obviously attracting a high-end client to our self-cert.
Right.
He didn't say, they're all lying, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly.
Which is exactly perhaps what they were doing. Surprisingly, the firm went bankrupt, went into liquidation about 4 months later, and we all lost our jobs. So that's the thing, is things aren't that crazy now. Like from the finance side, I can feel banks are opening up and they've got a bit more money than they can lend, but they are a hell of a lot more careful than they were 12 years ago. I
guess, because the 2008 one was quite a big...
Huge.
It was a big deal.
It was it was biggest since the Wall Street crash.
So I guess they've learned from that and they're be a bit more cautious as well.
Well, the regulation got better.
Right, okay.
I'm a big supporter of regulation. It makes my life harder because I've got rules I've got to follow and all the rest, and people do complain and say make less money. But we really need constraints, because otherwise what happens is the people who've been through the traumatic experience retire, and then 10 years later it's like, it's sort of just young ambitious people in London who've been to a good university but they're 26 years old and getting highly paid and working 100 hours a week or something, making the decisions. So it's like you do need to hem that in. It's the regulations is doing its job fairly well, I think. And I do feel it in development finance as well. And I wasn't in that market in 2006, but I know a couple of developers who were. The developers I know, that some of them that kind of cut their teeth in 2003 and rode that wave, got that boom. You can feel with some of them, they came up in an environment where it was really easy to get money. And their experience as developer was almost enough on its own. Whereas now they are a lot more careful and banks are a lot more stringent, and it's good. That's a sign of a functioning system. So, as I was saying, the past couple of years, it's been a bit, people have been saying, is it the top of the market? Two things made me think it wasn't. Firstly, everybody was saying that. And secondly, the banks were still saying no to a lot of cases.
Right, okay.
And that makes me go, okay, we haven't lost our marbles, sort of thing. And so going off on one, my dad was an experienced business person, really successful financial advisor firm, did extremely well, and he always used to say to me around the dinner table, there's the taxi driver test. Where it's like, by the time the taxi drivers are talking about an investment opportunity, it's too late.
Yeah.
Because everybody's talking about it.
Mm.
And past couple of years, the taxi drivers have been saying, "Are we about to hit a recession?"
Yeah.
Which has made me go, maybe we're okay, actually.
Yeah.
But the reality is, I don't know, and that's just kind of my psychology. I always look in the opposite direction to everybody else because I'm annoying. So it might just be what I'm like rather than the reality.
Yeah, I guess it's hard to say, and I guess with things like the coronavirus, it's like we don't even know how long this is gonna last, how quickly it's spreading. Like tomorrow, it could be like way worse than we're even saying now.
Yeah.
So it's like, I guess it's just a very uncertain time.
It is, yeah. Well, times are always uncertain. It's just sometimes they feel like they're not.
Yeah.
So there's always a small risk of a really bad thing happening. There's always that risk, there's always the risk of sort of getting in a car accident or whatever it is. It's just sometimes we kind of fool ourselves into thinking it's not.
Yeah.
So when you study something like economics or business, that's basically the process that you go over a couple of 100 years of data, and you see how history basically repeats.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what recessions are, is a bit of history repeating every 6 or 7 years.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I mean, I think I've got to personally sit down and work out what's my survival plan for the business if this happens.
Yeah.
Because all the cases I've built over the last year, a lot of those are in process at the moment, and they might not fall through. So I've got to go, all right, oh God, what am I going to do there?
Yeah.
Secondly, if that happens, hopefully it won't. But secondly, I've got to, more excitingly, in a changing environment, there must be some opportunity.
Yeah.
So where is it? And it's not an easy question, I haven't got an answer for it.
Yeah.
But if you can figure it out, some people do really, really well in recessions.
Yeah, like this is the time for the creative solutions. Yeah.
And maybe you could do something that's ethical along with it.
Yeah, of course.
I was chatting to my marketing guy yesterday about this. I called him up because he's going to do a bit of advertising for me soon. I called him up and said, on the ad campaign, hold off a couple of weeks because we were about to start advertising new development finance for eco stuff.
Yeah.
I said, well, that might not be just totally wasted money. So hold off. He was joking with me. He said, oh, we'll just change the adverts to have somebody in like a gas mask.
Oh God.
Go for like bunker finance. Well, I hope it doesn't, because we laughed, and now if it does turn out to be a disaster, we'll look awful.
I know. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
I feel like it just wasn't a big deal at the start. I feel like it's only the past like week or like sort of 2 weeks where it's kind of like, oh, this is like a big deal now. It's not like, oh, it's just coronavirus kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, I think there was a bit of a denial attitude at the start.
Yeah.
Where everyone was, oh, it's fine. Anybody in the know, it wasn't because they'd say it's not as deadly. But anybody in the know knows it's not how deadly, it's how massively contagious it is. That's the problem.
Yeah. And I guess as well, because with China, they're quite a high spending population. So I guess that's kind of like why economically it's hit very hard. Yeah. It's not like they're a low spending like country. Yeah.
So it's I might use a really naff metaphor here, but there's a thing they talk about called the velocity of money, which is how quickly money goes around an economy, like how quickly the wheels are turning.
Right.
So there's a total amount of money in the economy, but it's how quickly it moves from you to the bar. That barman's going to go spend it on his rent to the landlord, back to the supermarket. That pound will circulate.
Yeah.
When that slows down, that's when growth slows as well.
Right. Okay.
So it's sort of like a machine. And it's that speed of transaction is gonna massively slow.
Yeah.
So spending has an impact. What I'm genuinely worried about is if it snowballs into something unexpected that we're not all seeing.
Yeah.
Or if the virus mutates to something worse.
Yeah. So what other impacts will this have on property?
All right. You might be able to snap up a cheap deal in 4 months' time. If you're sitting on cash, sit on it for another couple of months and see. And if you've got an offer on the table at the moment and you're in process, see how it goes, and you might be able to negotiate a reduced purchase price in 2 months' time.
Yeah.
So have a think about that. Look at your rental portfolio. If you've got a portfolio, have a good look at it now, and be really cynical about, all right, I might have a few months of vacancy across these properties.
Yeah.
Can I afford it? Where's the money coming from? Property prices at the top end of the market, luxury penthouses, high value houses in London, those things will drop before other stuff drops.
Yeah.
The top of the market always suffers. The bottom of the market is always the bottom. So there's not a lot of distance for that to drop.
Yeah.
Interestingly, prices vary more than rents.
Yes.
Did you know that already?
Yeah, rents kind of stay similar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's just like people. The renters are they need somewhere to live.
Yeah, and I guess if people are having to sell up because they can't afford like mortgage payments, then they might end up renting.
Exactly.
So,
yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Scary times.
Yeah, but it's always it's just life, isn't it? There's always something, and it's our ability to deal with that and adapt, and hopefully see where the opportunity is.
Yeah, definitely.
There will be an opportunity, and if I find it, I'll come and tell you if it is as
You'll
well.
share.
I just have a thing. The one thing I'd do is if I was about to start a development of high, absolutely top end luxury flats in London being sold to foreign investors, I would stop.
Yeah.
Immediately, and hold off for a few months at least, because if there's a Chinese business person, he's not going to want to move to London to buy it now.
Yeah. No, it's not the time.
It's not the time. But we did see the data. I watched a couple of reports before I came here, and there was the first thing that happened. I'm repeating myself, but the first thing that happened in China is they saw in the hotel data in the sort of the leisure and tourism dropped off. That was the first thing to go.
Yeah, so that's, I guess in terms of property, it is like the sort of service accommodation hotel market that's like the riskiest.
Yeah.
But then I guess it was kind of always like high risk, high reward.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. Well, that's where there's a bit of a rule of thumb in anything with economics. If the returns are above what you'd expect elsewhere, if you're earning more money, there's got to be risk in there somewhere.
Yeah.
And if you think there isn't, there is. You're just missing it.
Yeah.
You don't know what it is.
Yeah, and this is what it was.
This is potentially, hopefully not, because I don't work, because I've got plenty of clients who are doing this, and I want them to do well. But yeah, we've got to keep an eye on it, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, look, all right. Ending on positive. Genuinely, I think, just my kind of going a pub level opinion, I think this is going to be a dampening down for 3 months, and then we're going to get right back to the path we were on, which was finally seeing a bit of a growth and a boom.
Yeah.
Because we were on that track already. We were on that track for 2 months. All right, we've had a knockback, but as it stands, it's going to be 3 months. So prepare for the worst, but get ready. Be ready for opportunity always, because there's going to be something, whether it's going up or down or sideways, there's always something.
Yeah.
So keep positive, and if you can't see the opportunity, it's because you haven't found it yet.
Yeah, like this wasn't to scare you guys.
No.
We're just kind of sharing our thoughts and opinions.
Yeah. Yeah, no, not at all. And I want people to do well.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
we'll all do better along. And you never know, I might get a bit of business. That'll be lucky as well.
We hope.
Yeah, we hope.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on my channel
Anytime.
again. This was actually quite spontaneous, wasn't it? So.
Yeah, I think they can tell. They can probably tell. Yeah.
So we have got another video coming out this week about bridging finance and development finance, which hopefully is still relevant by the time it goes out.
Yeah.
But thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you follow me on Instagram at Leah_Miller, and I'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Your eyes like the sunshine on my face. It's a good night, how you smells nice on the pillowcase. And I love when I see you walking by. I know that life ain't perfect, but you make it alright.